Shooting of those protesters in Egypt, British Foreign Secretary William Hague said, "I call on the Egyptian authorities to respect the right of peaceful protest, to cease the use of violence against protesters, including live fire, and to hold to account those responsible." And a spokeswoman for the EU's foreign policy chief, Catherine Ashton, says that she deeply deplores the loss of life during yesterday's demonstration. She also calls on all actors to refrain from violence and to respect the principles of peaceful protest and non-violence. Let's get more from Tarek Osman in London. He's an Egyptian writer and author of Egypt on the Brink, From Nasser to Mubarak. Is Egypt on the brink now, would you say?
I think from a social point of view, it remains on the brink. It has been for some time and it continues to be. And I think the real story has not changed, actually, not just in the past 2 years, but even before the 2011 uprising or revolution. Effectively, you have a huge social divide, not on politics, but really on the identity of the state, on the shape of this future, and the shape of the society itself. And I think even if there are some majorities on one side or another, there are huge differences between the views of wide segments in the society on these crucial issues. And that's very dangerous.
Why do you think there is this need for this extreme violence to end this?
Sorry, I haven't heard your question.
I'm just talking about the violence that we witnessed last night. Why do you think that happened? What is the message and why the need to resort to that?
Keep in mind, of course, that to a large extent there are various potential perpetrators of violence in this case. So obviously on one case you are looking at potential security forces. On the other side there are potential demonstrators. There are some also very loose groups that have been operating in Egypt, most obviously in Sinai recently. But again, I think the crucial element in Egypt that many people sometimes glance over is that in this society, in Cairo itself at least, there is over 6 or 7 million people who are under 20 or 25 years old. Many of them are predominantly on the streets and in a milieu of anger, in an atmosphere of passionate ideas that are clashing with each other. Then violence can be effectively between people on the ground, and that can cascade widely. And that is, again, in my view at least, the most dangerous element here.
So do you think there's some ground or some truth when the military says that they were targeted, that in actual fact people in the Morsi camp were tortured when people thought they were informers? I mean, does that ring true? Does this play into what you're saying about those different little groups around?
Again, we will hear so many different claims from different sides, but again, the most important point for me right now, which I think is the strategic story in Egypt right now, is not really who did what yesterday. There will be lots of investigations on that. But the crucial point is you have millions on the streets right now having completely, not just different, but opposing views on their own identity, on what this society should be about, on the transition process itself. And this huge social divide in a very condensed city or cities, in very difficult economic situations, in demographics that are very young, this by itself is the dangerous element in Egypt right now.
Okay, so
and of
how
course,
will
this will create tension.
These opposing groups that you talk about come together to get some sort of political process on the road and support for that process?
Well, I think that the word support is the most important point, because there have been already a number of initiatives put forward. I understand one had just been put forward literally minutes ago. Correct. By a leading member of arguably the Islamist movement and a presidential contender at one point or another. There has been also one that came out from Al-Azhar, if you remember, a few months ago, the famous Sunni Islamic University in Egypt. But what has always been lacking so far is the point of consensus. And I think you would never have consensus in Egypt, and it's not expected to have consensus. I don't think any country in the world has consensus in politics. But the point is to have inclusion. And that by itself now is the important point. Is there any viability of having a realistic transition process in Egypt and a realistic dialogue in Egypt in which huge segments of the society are excluded? In my opinion, no, you can't have that. So you need to have genuine inclusiveness, and that is, I think, the target that the wise people of this country should be working at right now.
All right, good talking to you, Tarek Osman. Thanks for your time.